Everybody, welcome back to another episode of FSi DFS Fantasy Baseball Picks. I am your host, Mega Ruler 31. We've got two slates today. I mean, FanDuel's got like 40 slates. DK and FanDuel do not line up. So this is going to be like the early slate video. And then I'll do a second one for the later slate or evening slate, which is like FanDuel starts at 6:35 and DK starts at 7:20, but that'll be a separate video. This one, DK starts at 12:35, and they put together a nice 9-game like kind of main slate, whereas FanDuel puts together like I think it was like a 4-game slate, and then at like 3 or 4 o'clock put together like a 5-game slate. So, and all the good like pitchers and like stacks and stuff are in the early part of it, so like the end is just like trying to make lines for it was like blow my mind. So anyways, let's get into this, and again I'll just try to it's not bad because I'm not going to differentiate like which is which one for FanDuel here. We'll just primarily concentrate on the DK slate, and when we go to the roster constructions, then you'll be able to kind of figure out where we're going. Maybe I'll mention it as I run through the games. So first off, we have Oakland and the Yankees, Kyler Muller and Johnny Brito. Muller is definitely a fade here. Yankees have been really good against right-handed pitching. Oakland's been giving up some runs to Yankees with Judge back, even though he's 0 for 3. We saw that with Harper when he came back, and then like the next game he did really well. So I'm not saying that's going to happen with Judge, but you know, and Bader coming up, it makes this lineup just a little bit longer. So it's more people to have to worry about. So I think, you know, definitely not playing Muller. Brito, yesterday, like the Yankees pitcher had some ownership, definitely like more than we anticipated, probably because it was Schmidt. They, you know, Oakland's just been really bad against right-handed pitching, so Brito just doesn't have as much K upside as Schmidt did. So I'm not super as interested here. I think he's definitely potentially in play, and I think he'll be at his price tag if people want to try to get like there's two main teams that you probably want to stack here, and they're reasonable, but there are some expensive parts to it. So definitely in play for an SP2 potentially, because the SP1 by default is going to be very expensive on DK. So, but I wouldn't rule out playing some of the Oakland bats here too, especially like Ruiz leading off has been solid. Noda has some power. Their rookie has been good both sides of the plate. Lede, I believe he was like a high prospect from the Marlins, and now he's here hitting fourth, filling in for injury. I believe Laureano is still going to be out with hamstring or knee or something like that. And Perez, the catcher, hits like at 2-4 in the 5th position. Jordan Diaz had like 3 bombs yesterday, but he hits like 7, so not super interested in him, but it's in play. So I think you could sprinkle some A's in, like in GPP if you want to go full stack. That's perfectly fine. But Yankees are going to be by far the top stack on the slate. Even with Judge at 6'3", I'd skip over Rizzo here, lefty on lefty. Mayhew's not great, but Torres just keeps on hitting the ball really well and really far. And Bader is still only 3.8 against lefty, which is good. I would play Kiner Falefa. He's just been horrible recently. Watch, this is the game that he scores like 30 DK points. But if he does it, it'll probably be like 2 singles, 1 double, and like a couple stolen bases and runs scored. So it'll be like you know, nibbling away at a 30 DK point. I don't think he's going to hit like double dongs or anything like that. Higgy should be catching here. He's decent. And then Cabrera, they have slated at the 9th slot, so that's he's only at 2-4. He's decent if you want to do a wraparound stack there, so to get that in. So Yankees definitely top stack on the slate. Colorado and Pittsburgh. Colorado put up a ton of runs yesterday out of nowhere. What they have 10 versus Pittsburgh, which is not a hitter's ballpark. Wind's blowing out a little bit, 70 miles per hour, 70 degrees, 70 miles per hour. That I'd be like, this is the top stack on the slate, absolutely. But No, 5 miles per hour wind blowing out. So Sensitel and Hill. And Sensitel, I'm on the fade list. I mean, he's more of a ground ball guy. He's just shouldn't give up a lot of power and everything here. Not a huge K guy, so I'm not really interested. Hill, same thing. It's like he's had some good outings, and Colorado has been kind of dormant, although they did wake up, obviously yesterday. But they do have some righties with some power here, so I'm not super interested. If you want to go Colorado with like just focusing on the righties, like Profar leading off is usually cheap. He's not going to have power, but if you can get on some of the other guys like Grichuk, Bryant, and Cron can hit him home. And Tofar, if you need a cheap shortstop here, he has high prospect. Colorado put a lot of eggs in this basket. And they brought him up and he really struggled. He was like hitting like 100, like just above 100. And then they came out and said, we're not sending him back down. He's going to be up here. We're going to work with him. He's going to figure this out. And he's actually been hitting like over 300 and had a pretty decent stash line over the course of the last couple of weeks. So I think he's starting to get it put together. I know he's down in the bottom lineup. If you need a cheap shortstop as a one-off here, don't mind him against a lefty at 2,500 on DK. Pittsburgh on the other side here. I think I put them in the top stack just because it's Colorado and their bullpen is absolutely horrible. And I mean, they have a 4.61 total and they've hit pretty well here. Reynolds has been cold recently since his red hot start. He didn't sign the contract, but I wouldn't read too much into that. You got a lot of righties here, but I always like Sawinski against Sensitel. But again, these fly ball hitters might be neutralized by this ground ball guy. So I'm not super high on Pittsburgh here. I mean, you got some guys but once you get past Sensitel, get into the bullpen, and then, potentially there's some opportunities so for the lefties to go off, or I don't think Colorado has a bunch of lefties in their bullpen, so the lefties should still be safe. I don't see them getting pitch hit for. This isn't San Francisco, where they could pretty much like have line changes as soon as you change a pitcher. It's like hockey or something. But that's pretty much what I got for that game. Next game up, Detroit and Cleveland. Erod versus Eduardo Rodriguez versus Peyton Bedingfield. Wind blowing in here 4 miles per hour. It's an upgrade from Detroit for hitting ballpark, but still it's not like an elite hitting ballpark. I like both pitchers here. Like Erod has seemed to be starting to put together in really good form here, and Bedingfield has been decent also in his young career. And Detroit just doesn't have much power, and Cleveland on the other side is just like not really hitting really well. And most of these guys that are switch hitters like Ramirez and Bell hit better left-handed side of play against righties than they do right-handed side of play against lefties. Plus, like Juan's a lefty leading off here, and they never move him out of the lineup. Like David Fry in the 5th spot, I don't know much about him. Jimenez has been struggling. Gabriel Arias, like this is just not the same Cleveland team with like some injuries and stuff as they were last year. I mean, they don't strike out, but they don't like have a ton of power. So both pitchers are in play here, and Detroit would just be maybe a cheap stack, but I think they'd maybe probably go into like the 150 max no interest category. Like I didn't even have enough teams to fill out here, so I just threw them under the cheap one. And not really maybe a leverage play if Bedingfield gets a bunch of ownership, which I think he will in the cheap range here. And then Erod, same thing, like Cleveland's just like kind of a leverage play. Yeah, I don't really like Detroit there as a cheap stack. I'll put them over here in the leverage section. Okay, so what's the final game on FanDuel? It's going to be the Dodgers and the Brewers. Clayton Kershaw lock. If you watched my video the other day, and it was a long video, I think it was on Friday for that slate, and it was just like a long breakdown like of every single team. And we pulled up pitchers, and like they did bad. They had a good game. It was a lefty. Good game versus Milwaukee. Good game. Even Sean Manaea, who's been struggling this season, and a lefty last time out, had a good game against Milwaukee. Milwaukee is horrible against left-handed pitching, and Kershaw is an elite left-handed pitcher. So of course it is baseball and high variance sport. So Milwaukee's going to probably put up like 30 runs on him here, just because that's the way things happen. But I highly doubt it. Creighton Kershaw, lock button in cash, and then Wade Miley on the other side has really struggled, which sets up the Dodgers and the Yankees. That's why I said, this is going to be very expensive here to be the 2 top stacks on the slate with Kershaw. And that's pretty much what you want. You stop watching the video right now. I hope you don't, but that's pretty much all you really need to know for this slate is play Creighton Kershaw, find a cheap SP2, and stock Dodgers and stack Dodgers and Yankees. And there's enough cheap plays like Vargas here, who had a home run yesterday at second base. If you don't play Torres, there is really cheap at 2.5. Thompson has some power. Projected down in the lineup, usually hits higher against the lefty, but we'll have to see what happens here. It is Wednesday, so it could be some weird guys giving the day off too. But Betts and Will Smith and Taylor in the 4th spot is an awesome price at 3K here. Vargas, Thompson, Barnes at catcher is always like really cheap for if you want to do a wraparound like Thompson, Barnes. That's Skip Freeman, Smith, Taylor. I mean, that's a great stack there. Fill in with the Yankees or do your Yankee stack and fill in with the Dodger one-offs, however you want to do it. That's what we want to play. Milwaukee, again, if you want to throw it in a buck, stack the righties here. They have Contreras leading off the catcher. Usually Brichet who does, but we'll see how that is. Miller, like I would play Yelich, like so if you're doing this contrarian stack, it's going to be Contreras, Miller, Adames, Brichet, and Anderson. That's who, and maybe Tyrone Taylor. He can steal some bases. So that's how you want to build your contrarian stack there. Okay, so now here's where we split. DK continues, and FanDuel, this starts the early slate. The games that we just covered are the very early slate for FanDuel. I know it gets so confusing. Okay, Eduardo Cabrera for Miami against Merrill Kelly. Cabrera hasn't been horrible recently, and like he has been getting a lot of strikeouts, even against teams that don't generally strike out too much. So there are some strikeouts in this Arizona lineup. And definitely they do have some really good lefties here, but it's somebody that we could definitely consider playing in the medium range. And Kelly, same thing against the Marlins. I know that the young pitcher from Arizona, FSi or whatever, his sounds like the Volkswagen or whatever, you didn't do as well as we thought you would last night. Like he gave a couple runs and like, okay, settling down, he'll be fine. And then he was like back in the negative, back in the positives, like watching like the stock market on the day that, an important like financial report or something comes out and you see it go up and down and up and down, up and down. It's crazy. But Kelly, I don't think is more established pitcher. He's having a decent season. So I think both these pitchers are solidly playing the mid-range. I like Erod the best, but you don't really have a choice on FanDuel because they're not Erod's not available, so these two guys would be a decent place to start your lineup if you wanted to. Miami, I think just in a GPP here because just some of the lefties like probably Jazz. Soler's been decent. Gurriel seems to hit righties better than lefties. He's kind of reverse switch batter rays. So like probably the top 4 is as far as I'd go if I was stacking him there. And then the Diamondbacks, I mean, they're getting kind of expensive here. Like Russ is almost 5K, Carroll's at 5.8. So like Pat Smith is decent at 3.2. Dominic Fletcher. So there are some cheats people in the lineup if you want to try to make a 4 or 5 man stack against Cabrera here, but I do it in a GPP. If I have him as one of the top stacks here, but after rethinking this, I would probably go here and then put Arizona down there. So next game up, we have the Texas Rangers and the Seattle Mariners. We have Dane Dunning and Castillo. Dunning is coming in to fill in for DeGrom's spot in the rotation. You've been in the bullpen, so I don't know how far stretched out he is, but not really interested in. Although Seattle hasn't been hitting, he's a fade for me. Castillo's been start off the season solid. He's struggled. Texas can hit, so I think you'll see Castillo get some ownership just because if people look at the Texas only has a 2.95 total. If you're betting, I would bet the over on that. I think that's way too low for Texas. Hopefully, if you're watching this video and get in on that, it's still at that is just crazy low. So I definitely bet the over on that. And I think Texas will be fine here. Top leverage stack on the slate against Castillo. Obviously, they have the most potential. And Seattle bats against Dunning. I just have them in the GPP. There's so many other people in such other good places. They haven't really been putting together recently. So maybe they'll snap out of it. I think, they're healthy. They got most of the people in the lineup, but I think it's just a matter of when things start to heat up, and I think they'll heat up also. They'll come together. They'll be decent. I mean, they almost made it to they're only a couple games away from making it to the World Series last year. They have pretty much the same roster with a couple of good additions, so they'll be fine. Washington and San Francisco, wind blowing out here 20 miles per hour, which again in San Francisco is almost about like 10 miles per hour in another ballpark. So it's going to help here. But it's 57 degrees, so it's going to be a cool afternoon, breezy. So Josiah Gray's been better recently, so I think he's definitely in play here against San Francisco, who has a lot of left-handed power, but just hasn't shown it. Like they're so erratic. Like they'll come out and play, and they'll look like they're in a great spot, and they'll underperform. Or there are other times where you think that they're in a bad spot, and then they'll come out and hit. So you don't know. Manaea again looked better last time, but it was against Milwaukee. Washington, it's just like somebody said it great on another analysis, is like they're just like a death by 1,000 cuts. It's just like they just like nibble away at you, like like I would say, like kind of for Lafa, to get his like high DK scores on a rare occasion. Like it's not like a lot of power. I mean, Lane Thomas has a little bit. Mensa should, but he just hasn't shown it. Like Ruiz from time to time, a switch hitting catcher, but the rest of them are just like it's all small ball. It's just like singles and doubles. Stretch them into another base by a steal. Put a gun to hits together, and that's what they do to you. So I think Washington is definitely in play. Both these teams are pretty cheap, so I like both sides of them. I like Gray as a pitcher. I like the left-handed batters in San Francisco and GPP, but they do get pinch hit for a lot. So if you want to go Wade, Peterson here, Conforto if he ever comes back into form. Sabo, I loved him as catcher. He's gotten a little bit higher in price and cooled off a little bit. But if you want like one-off play, Casey Schmidt has been called up to fill in for Brandon Crawford, who's on the IL right now for San Francisco. He is a third base eligible at minimum price, and he was amazing. I think he's like their number 4 overall prospect in the organization, top 100 prospect also. So Casey Smith, remember that name. I guess it's righty on righty here, so it probably won't be that popular, but I really think that if you're looking for a cheap third baseman to make something work, then just throw him in there and see what happens, because the guy's a really, really good hitter. So like I said, like bats on both sides, I can go Josiah Gray. Manaea probably not interested in, but like he's out of all the cheap pitchers, he'd be like last in line, right above the fade line. Toronto and Philadelphia, Gausman and Wheeler. Gausman has been really he had a bad outing, and then he had 2 really good outings, scored like 60 DP points, tons of strikeouts, and then ran into Boston, who again is another contact team that gets a lot of hits against you and has like power, and in Fenway if the wind's blowing and just the dimensions of the park, it's not Coors Field, but it's similar to like Wrigley and some of these other ones where in Yankee Stadium, where just the dimensions really foster a better hitting environment. So completely understand that. So Gausman, I think, will be popular, but 11-1, I just don't know if I can play him. I have him as like the lowest high price guy in my priority say. Wheeler on the other side has been solid. He's really good against right-handed batting, and that's pretty much all the Blue Jays lineup, although they did bring Varshay over here, but Belt just hasn't done anything. Biggio might be in there, but like he doesn't play enough to really matter, and Kiermaier is just a nice fill in at the bottom of the lineup that plays a good, outfield spot defensively, and occasionally can get on. And so, but it's just really not like anybody that's like super scary from left-handed side of the plate. So I think, I like Wheeler and Gossman. I like the discount on Wheeler. And I think in GPPs, I'm really going to go with a Philly stack here too, because I just think that they might not have Schwarber, but he's been struggling a little bit. I think he fouled the ball off his like foot. So if he's not in the lineup, that's fine. But probably a 4 if I can stretch it to a 5-man stack for Philadelphia, but I definitely like them in GPPs. Final game here, Javier and Canning. Javier's been decent also, but the Angel lineup can always be pretty dangerous. Wind blowing at 11 miles per hour, 66 degrees here for this one. So Houston, I think against Canning struggled. I put him in the cheap ones because it's 6'4". I don't think he's like a complete fade here. Coming back still from an injury. I think, before that he had like a ton of potential. It was like a high prospect. And, when he injured his like his spine or back or something. I think that he just hasn't been the same. He's working his way back. Houston, again, we said like they've been another Jekyll and Hyde one where they have a lot of potential. They have a lot of righties here, just like Tucker and Elvis on the lefties, really to be scared of. The bottom of the lineup isn't anything, especially with some of these younger guys in there. I mean, McCormick's back, which is good, but I'd rather have him against a lefty, not a righty. Jukas, Hensley, Maldonado, even though he took Ohtani deep last night, which is so he won't hit a home run for like another 25 games. So I think that's safe there. So, Canning could be in play. Javier, I definitely like also. Price at 9.8, you get a nice savings down from like Gossman or Wheeler or Castillo or Kershaw, and just a little bit more expensive than Erod. So kind of priced in no man's land here, which might be an advantage for you if you want to be a little bit different and go with him over Kershaw if it gets you some better bats. So that's what will happen. Angels bats, like I think I have them as top GPP, but I understand that like it's more probably of a leverage play. Really just hard to get them in price wise unless you're playing down at pitchers. They're just like, especially Trout and Ohtani, are just so expensive. Ward, Rendon, Renfroe, Drury, the ones that usually finish the stack off, like them much better against left-handed pitching than right-handed pitching. But Javier has given up some runs, so we'll just have to see what happens there. But I don't think that that's a priority. So that is all the early slate and very early slate. So let's look at some lineups here. So Kershaw, like I said, I'm taking Smith, Torres, Taylor, Volpe. Decide on Betts and Judge. You could probably, depending on your SP2 and how you fill in the rest here, potentially get both of them in your lineup. But I probably we'll go like Betts and like Bader and just like wait to see on Judge with the hip injury until he gets back to form on that. For FanDuel, Kershaw, Smith, Taylor, Volpe, Betts and Judge. Again, Bader is definitely a piece that I want here. You can try to get both of them in, but I think I would rather, you're going to have to take a one-off someplace. So, whatever works for your lineup here. If you want to go down to like Erod or Battenfield, as I had in the notes here, then you can like full stack like all the really good batters from New York and LA, and you don't have to take a one-off, and that could be definitely a different strategy from other people that might help you in like if you're playing like a single entry tournament or something like that and not trying to do it as cash. GPP, I'm taking Erod, I'm taking Philly. Again, there's so many different ways to go in GPP here. Nothing really stands out. So pick your poison. I'm hoping that Gossman struggles again, but he could go out there and have a masterful performance and strike out a bunch of Phillies. But I had to pick something. I'm going with there. I'm filling it with San Francisco. You could fill in with Washington also. You could go San Francisco and Washington, which I both said both have some upsides with bats because nobody else really sticks out. And then you can play two really good pitchers, try to get your points that way, and hope that the Yankees and the Dodgers don't hit and the chalk fails, and then you're in really good shape if you get like 60 points between your pitchers or something like that. So GPP on FanDuel, again, this is not GPP, this is actually the early slate where you don't have the Yankees and the Dodgers. So again, I'm going to take Washington, I'm going to take Philly. You got to go with Wheeler as my pitcher, but there's so many different ways to go. I really don't like the slate. I probably would be playing it on FanDuel if I wasn't doing like a breakdown for it and how to make a lineup. So I love the very early slate. I'm not too keen on the early slate. So that's what I got for you. Check out the channel in a little bit. I will have the evening video up for you. Like I said, FanDuel starts at 6:35. DK starts at 7:20. There's no like really late games tonight. I think the latest game, first pitch is in at 7:40. So I mean, it's not going to be a late night for baseball. Probably because the NBA playoffs, they want you. Major League Baseball probably cut a deal with NBA. They want you to watch like the Warriors and Lakers game tonight or something like that. So that's what I got for you. If you have any questions, put them in the chat below. Hit me up at MegaRotor31 on Twitter. You can also, if you want more information on FSi DFS, you can get the information on our website and how to sign up and everything in the description of the video. And if these videos help you, please help us back by liking the video, subscribe and share our channel if you haven't already, so you know when the videos come out, and share with your friends, which you have been doing very, very well, and we so appreciate it. So thanks again. It's been a pleasure to do this. Good luck in your contest. Tune in for the late slate or evening slate or whatever we want to call it, slate video for later on in the day tonight, and see you next time.